Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft, joined again this week by head coach of the West Bloomfield Lakers football team, Ron Bellamy. Ron, thank you for joining us once again.
Yeah. Fun times. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, big win over Lake Orion last week. Their first loss of the season. But they were even, or they had a little bit of an edge here and there throughout the game. Was this the toughest win for your team to get thus far this season?
Oh, no doubt about it. That's a team that they gave us a lot defensively, over 17 different formations, at least 5-6 plays out of each formation. They were well balanced, great leadership. They played well together. They posed a big challenge for us, but our defense made key stops when they had to. Most importantly, the last possession of the game for Lake Orion, the regulation, I should say, we stopped to give ourselves an opportunity to tie the score to put it into overtime, and obviously the last stop of the game was the game winner for us. So, our defense has been playing lights out all year, and we ran into a little challenge, but our defense made the plays when they had to.
Yeah, early on there were a couple of really big plays on both ends from Lake Orion and from West Bloomfield early on. Kobe Manzo had a quick score early on. Donovan Edwards had a quick score for West Bloomfield, and then from there Lake Orion had a little bit of an edge, and your team was making some new mistakes. So you go into the end of the first half at 17-7. What do you say to your guys at that point to keep them not only motivated but to adjust to this new little issue coming up?
Yeah, we had been there before. We were actually down to Birmingham Groves 10-7 at the halftime. So, we were down to Oak Park at the half. So being down at the half wasn't new to us. What was new was the way we were doing it, the way we were kind of self-destructing. We had some miscues with our snaps on Friday night, and there's something that was hurting us because we were moving the football efficiently, getting into the red zone, flipping the field position, and we were giving them extended opportunities, and what they were doing in return was pretty much exhausting the clock, limiting our possessions offensively, so we didn't have a chance to put more points on the board. But that's something that we corrected. We made a couple changes on Saturday morning, made the changes we had to make, and we were able to have good quarterback-center exchanges, and the rest was kind of history for us.
Yeah, there's definitely an adjustment that was visible to us up in the booth. Beginning in the second half, and you come out and your offense is marching up the field. You get down to the 5-yard line, 9:37 left, you're on the 5-yard line, you're close to either scoring a touchdown and making this within presumably 3 points, or picking up a field goal from Jake Ward and company and making this a one-score game. And then the weather delay comes into effect. So the delay comes in, the game's suspended. Give us a little bit of your perspective and insight into what went on overnight. How do you prepare to come back from that?
I felt like, you benefit the team that's trailing. You have more of the adjustments to make. And, we made some. I thought we made some good adjustments offensively for us. And they actually made some adjustments as well. Some things they took advantage of that we were doing defensively. We just felt like, we protected the football. Went out and scored, got a couple stops defensively, and then we were able to kind of close the gap. We thought that we had a great chance of winning that ball game. And we did. One key play of the game was they were up 24-10, kind of had us on our heels, and they were marching across the 50-yard line. And Michael Evans picked up a fumble, returning for a touchdown to cut the deficit to 7, as opposed to us being down 17-21. I think that may have been catastrophic for us. But we were able to, Big Mike's fumble return for a touchdown kind of changed the complexity of the game and allowed us to play our regular game that we wanted to.
So coming back from the weather delay the next evening after on Saturday night, does that stunt the routine of the team a little bit? Does that modify how you prepare to begin really restarting the game and continuing forward from there?
We wanted to we treated it much like we do a regular game. Luckily for us, they wanted to make it a 7 o'clock game, which I can't say we were in favor of, but, they're the home team, so they make the rules. But we treated it like it was a regular 7 o'clock game. We did our, meeting routine beforehand, pregame meal, got dressed, got taped, got stretched. We did everything that we normally would do. We warmed up the same when we got to the stadium a little earlier, and we wanted to kind of keep the kids to their schedule as much as possible, and we were able to do that.
And you had some extra time in between those games. I mean, the game the previous night was called right around 10 o'clock. The game on Saturday was going to reconvene at 7 o'clock. Did you have time to kind of review what had happened so far that game, both on the tape and just with your team? And what adjustments did you make with your guys at that point coming into the reconvening of that game?
Absolutely. No, we some of the things as far as the players go, some of the guys, our quarterbacks, running backs, some of our ball carriers, some of our defensive players, they were sore. One of the things we encourage them to make sure they stretch and iced. Friday night, just so their body not feeling it on Saturday afternoon. We were able to do that with the kids, and I think that paid dividends for us. In regards to the film preparation, we were able to break the film down. We had it, and we knew adjustments we had to make. A lot of it was self-inflicted. Now, they're a great team. Credit them. Absolutely. But a lot of the things we were doing offensively was, snaps over the quarterback's head. We ran a couple wrong routes a couple times that kind of stunted our, possessions. But, we went in the lab and cleaned it up, showed the kids the mistakes, and, we cleaned it up, and we were able to, on Saturday, not make the same mistakes.
Yeah, so the game reconvenes, and much like minus the snapping issues from the previous day, it's a back-and-forth game. Your offense is firing, but Lake Orion's milking that clock. And here you are, there's a minute and 35 left to play, and you're down 17-31 to Lake Orion. But in the second half especially, C.J. Harris was absolutely on fire. I mean, 246 yards passing in that game, 195 on the ground, 6 touchdowns, including those in overtime, and hitting his targets. How big of a factor did C.J.'s leadership and his gamesmanship play in those last couple minutes of the game and in overtime periods?
We prepare for those situations all the time in practice. We call them sudden change. We also work on 2-minute drills. We try to work on it twice a week. No huddle offense, and we get to work against our defense every week, which is arguably one of the best defenses in the state. And there's times where our defense wins most of the battles, but when the offense does win it, we understand that during the games, it may be a little easier. And we did that. We had to go down the score with 2 touchdowns. The end of the game, and CJ, he's an amazing leader, amazing kid. He put us in position to make plays, and we made him with his legs, and he made them with his arms.
Yeah, and in the air, the receiving game was fantastic in the ending stretch of the game. One guy that stood out to me was Ethan Bunch. His hands were absolutely fantastic. He was making catches in the air. He's pulling balls down with contact. For those who are not entirely familiar with his game, just how good is Ethan Bunch?
Ethan's our number 1 receiver. He's a stud. A lot of people don't know about Ethan. Last year as a junior, he tore his knee going into training camp. So, we kept him out the rest of the season. We just wanted to make sure he was healthy coming back for senior year, and he's been super productive. He's a kid that prepares in the ultimate way, comes out there. He's relentless in his pursuit of excellence, and you saw it Friday night. You see flashes all season long, but Friday night, I think the state found out who Ethan Bunch was.
Was that his coming out party?
Without question.
Yeah, and even beyond that, we can't shy away from the performance again this week of your defense, making key stops at key points of the game that really, more or less, kept your team in the game, gave your offense opportunities to be as on fire as it was, including at the end of the game, particularly Max Harrison's stop on 4th down in overtime to end the game essentially in the 4th overtime period. How important is it to have that kind of an anchor to your team's success and your defense being so strong?
Yeah, defense wins championships. I'm a firm believer in that. And, if you look at our roster, most of our talented kids, most of our prospects are on the defensive side of the ball. And, it's one of the things that we felt on Saturday. Our defense, like I said, there was 2 pivotal stops. It was the Lake Orion's last possession in regulation and obviously the last possession in overtime. Our defense, we gave them 4 opportunities to get 10 yards, and they were 1 yard sharp both times. And, hats off to Coach Grice, our defensive coordinator, for, putting the kids in the right position. But more importantly, the kids, they're the ones between those white lines that made the plays. And, sometimes it happens. It happens to the Alabamas of the world, the Clemsons, the New England Patriots, you name it. They've been in a situation where, a great defense, you don't have your best outing every night, and I'm just happy that the offense rose to the occasion to put some points on the board. But like you said, the defense at the end, man, they anchored down, and They made the plays when they had to.
Yeah, so obviously you defeat an undefeated team. It's the top of the OAA right at the time coming into that game. Big emotional win. What do you tell your guys after that? What do you say to your team in your meeting at the end of that game to kind of reflect and really, to just reflect on such a big anchor of a win?
You know, the one thing we tell them was enjoy the victory. You deserve it. This is an awesome win. It's a big-time win. Great team on their field. The way we came back, we showed our resiliency. You know, we were very resilient Saturday night. But, we told them, enjoy it, sleep on it. Come Sunday night, get ready for practice on Monday. We didn't have school on Monday with the holiday. But they came in Monday, and it wasn't about Lake Orion. It was about Rochester Adams. And that's our message is enjoy the 24-hour rule. We have another daunting task, ahead of us with Adams. So you don't get to enjoy your victories too much in the OAA Red.
Yeah. Another big game coming up on Friday this week against Rochester Adams. That's the homecoming game, and we'll talk more about that later on in the show. But we'll be right back in just a minute with Makari Paige from the Lakers defense, and we'll come back later on with Coach Bellamy and preview this week's homecoming game against the Rochester Adams Highlanders. You're listening to This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com. This hour of programming is brought to you in part by Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital. 10 years ago, Henry Ford Health System celebrated the grand opening of its West Bloomfield Hospital. Since then, they've celebrated innovative new technologies, medical breakthroughs, and unique approaches to health and healing. To learn more about Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital, visit henryford.com/West Bloomfield 10. Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital is a proud sponsor of Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
Seventy 70% of pedestrian deaths happen outside of a crosswalk. Make eye contact with drivers. Distractions are deadly. Use a crosswalk. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft, and I'm joined now by West Bloomfield Lakers defensive back Makari Paige. Makari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So, give us a little bit of an insight into your football journey. Where did it begin, and how did it lead you here to West Bloomfield High School?
So I started in the 4th grade playing for Novi Bobcats. I played running back there, and then I played till like 8th grade with that same team. And then in middle school, I was deciding on like where to go to high school, and I picked West Bloomfield because they had like 7 Division I guys going to college the next year. So I texted Coach Bell on Twitter, and I told him I was coming here and landed me here.
So a lot of these guys on this team have known each other for a long time. Did you know anybody coming in before you joined them on the team?
No, I didn't.
All right, so you came in a little bit unfamiliar, but still you've developed into one of the leaders of this team and an anchor on this team. How important is it to you as a football player and as a leader to have an influence on the other guys coming up?
I mean, when I came here freshman year, sophomore year, like my younger days, I had people looking up, I had looked up to, so like they helped me out a lot. So I just try to be that same with the younger kids too.
Okay. Now we're all friends here. I'm personally a Spartan. I'm a Michigan State alum. Now you're headed to the University of Michigan, and I just want to know, just from your perspective, it's a great football program, a historic football program. What attracted you to commit to the University of Michigan?
The coaching staff, the system, the defensive system, and then education. Most importantly, got a high education, so I want to be a part of that. Agree.
So all the elements involved, from the schooling to the football elements, it's all coming together at Michigan, and really it's all been coming together here. You've been on this team. How long have you been on West Bloomfield varsity team? It's been 3 years.
Three.
So 3 years, and you were on the team that made it to the state championship game a couple of years ago. How does that experience help you going forward last year and through this season, and how does it help you prepare for football games going forward, and how does it help you influence your teammates in preparing for their game?
Playing in that state championship game and like just being there around the atmosphere and stuff like that makes you want to go back there like even more every year. So like we just got to prepare. We just got to take one game at a time, prepare for it. And hopefully we get there and win this time.
One thing I've seen from your game throughout the season, you think of a defensive back, you think more of defending the pass, but I see you a lot coming in and supporting the run defense as well. So what are some things that you're looking out for when you're in coverage in these games?
So first, like, it depends on the coverage we're in. If I'm playing man-to-man, I don't really like read the tackles and stuff, but if it's like two halves, I can read the tackles, read the guards, I see them pulling, I see them like down blocking, so I can react to that. And it's really simple, and then just reading the tackles in the line and just seeing it.
It's just good fundamental football from Makari Paige here on This Week in Laker Football on 89.3 Lakes FM, at lakesfm.com, and on TV on Civic Center TV. So your team has great support from the student body here at West Bloomfield High School. It's grown over the years. And this being homecoming week, how does the support of the Swamp and the teaching staff and everybody here at West Bloomfield High School, how does that help your team stay motivated to continue to be successful on the football field?
I mean, seeing the Swamp field, it like hypes us, it like gives like an extra boost, you know? Having people watching us and stuff like that, it gives like extra, you know, we want to be out here, we want to win, so we're going to win for them and like for the school and stuff like that, for ourselves obviously, but it just motivates us a little bit more.
So obviously, you were heavily recruited coming out of West Bloomfield High School and going on to college. You've committed to the University of Michigan. Looking beyond that, you have a lot of potential, and we're not going to put any pressure on you with that potential. But who are some of the guys at the next level that you look up to as football players?
Next level at college or NFL, doesn't matter.
Both.
I like Jamal Adams a lot. He played physical. Jalen Ramsey, he like talk trash, and he backs it up a lot too. Derwin James too, play safety, kind of long like me, and he's aggressive too. He's he good. I like him a lot too. So yeah.
Smart, aggressive, hard-nosed football players. That's exactly what we would expect from a player like you. Much of the same. Makari, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Defensive back Makari Paige from the West Bloomfield Lakers football team. Here on This Week in Laker Football, we'll be back in just a few with Coach Ron Bellamy, and we'll preview this week's homecoming football game against the Rochester Adams Highlanders. This is This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM and online at lakesfm.com.
"65% of bicyclist deaths happen in the dark. Use a bike light when riding and watch for bikes when driving at night." Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Laker football is live every Friday this fall on Civic Center TV, WBTV, and 89.3 Lakes FM. Tune in before every game kicks off at 7 p.m. for live analysis from Dave Scott and Tyler Kieft, and then another great Laker football matchup. You can listen on Civic Center TV, WBTV, and of course on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM and on the web on lakesfm.com. Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football. I'm joined by West Bloomfield's head football coach, Ron Bellamy. And after a big win against Lake Orion, the OAA Red, that league never sleeps. You're moving on this week. You're playing Rochester Adams on Friday night. So for our audience that may not be familiar with the Highlanders, give us a little bit of insight. Who are the Rochester Adams Highlanders? That's a football team.
Yeah, Coach Petrito, their head coach, he's been there for ages, over 20-plus years. Has a phenomenal football program. Senior Layton team, the kids, a lot of his kids, they all come from the Rochester Redskins youth organization running the Veer offense. For those that's not too familiar with the Veer offense, it's an offense where, multiple people can touch the ball at a time, a lot of fakes. You got to read your keys, sound, disciplined football in order to have success against this offense. But most importantly for this offense, what they want to do is they want to shorten the football game. They averaging 3-4 yards a carry and moving the chains and very monotonous about what they do and how they pursue football games. But when you look at that clock, there's times when they're having 6-7 minute drives and our offense has to be on the game. We're going to be limited with our possessions on Friday night, so we have to make the most of what we do. And but this Adams team, man, they're scrappy and they're going to fight to the end. It should be a good one on Friday night.
So you're coming in again, and it seems like every week. I mean, we talked about this before Oak Park, after Southfield A&T last week with Lake Orion, and again this week, another really stingy defense from Rochester Adams. They've only allowed 7 points in 2 of their 5 games so far. So with their offense clicking, what does your team have to do to come into this game and get out ahead of a defense like Rochester Adams has?
Yeah, the biggest thing is you got to watch the film. It's all about preparation, finding weaknesses and try to attack it, use our strengths against them. It's an opponent that we're somewhat familiar with. We've played against them the last 2 years, so both ball games have been very close. So we understand what type of game it's going to be. But for us, it's just about taking care of the football, putting the ball in our playmakers' hands, putting the kids in the right situations, and letting them do what they do.
So just from a forward perspective standpoint, we're well over the halfway point on the season. We're heading toward what is likely to be another potential playoff run. So from a positioning standpoint, does your game planning change as you start to approach the end of the season and work to position yourselves for a playoff appearance potentially?
Yeah, for us it's about building depth. We're constantly trying to do that every week. There's injuries, there's different things that occur that are unforeseen. So always be ready for the elements, things out of your control. We're just continuing to build and develop. I think offensively we found our identity. We've kind of hit our stride the last couple of weeks. Defensively, we just want to keep growing, putting our kids in good situations and positions to be successful. And that's our take on it, take it 1 week at a time, and just try to continue to develop and get better. I think that's the lost art. Everyone talks about wins and losses, but the key is development, and we really stress that. And it's something that we made some errors in the Lake Orion game that showed us as a coaching staff we have to do a better job of going up and cleaning up some things that we thought we were solid at.
Okay. Well, more of that coming up next week on This Week in Laker Football. That's going to do it for this week's show. And I'm Tyler Kieft, joined, of course, as always, by the West Bloomfield head football coach, Ron Bellamy. This Week in Laker Football is brought to you in part by our good friends over at Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital, celebrating 10 years of serving the greater West Bloomfield community. So, for Coach Ron Bellamy and the entire West Bloomfield football team, I'm Tyler Kieft, thanking you for joining us again on This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM and online at lakesfm.com.